conference starting tomorrow in Seattle is highlighting innovative new ideas and technologies. It's also helping to create community in a city that is quickly growing. Here to explain is Tamara Power-Drutis and Eddie Rehfeldt from the Seattle Interactive Conference. Welcome to you both. There is a lot going on. What is this conference?
Well, the conference is, as you said, 2 days, about 3,000 people. It's been around for 7 years, but having attended both TED and also South by Southwest, it's sort of the best of both.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Where is this?
It'll be at the convention center, just right off, and it's pretty self-contained, but if we're 3,000 people, it doesn't feel cramped, but it's pretty active.
Right, and so when you blend those two, what do you get?
Yeah, well, I think what we're finding as a community is that expectations for corporations and businesses are really increasing. And from the inside and the outside, there's pressure to increase corporate social responsibility, right, to increase roles of activism in the community. So employees on the inside are saying that they want their companies to be more than just talking points and commercials, but to actually take a stand on what they're experiencing in their communities. And from the outside, consumers are realizing that we can vote with our wallets, and if you block us at the ballot box, we'll show up in the quarterly earnings statements. And so there's a lot more.
Idea.
Yeah, there's more pressure on companies, and so this network component and the ability to connect and to learn from each other and to share best practices across industries is particularly important.
Well, it sounds like it's part of this whole trend towards an interactive experience, that it isn't just a TV show talking to you or a company deciding what you will buy, but part of this greater conversation that we're having in society. This is a good thing, right?
Well, you'll notice that all the major brands are there, right? So you've got Microsoft, you have Starbucks, you have REI, Google, Facebook, all of them are there, and they're having a conversation about being purpose-driven. We worked on a campaign, Forces of Nature, with REI, and at the anchor was this conversation around women, and it also connected to REI's real mission and values around sort of supporting women and women's issues. And actually, one of the sessions we have is our clients talking about that idea in that campaign. So it's really, it's one of the things that's wonderful is brands now feel that they really want to show up in that way. So it's wonderful.
And it's not just advertising. This has to do with the way they do business, what they represent, and what they can help lead, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing that companies are stepping up to fill a void left by a lot of our elected officials. And so, you know, for example, President Trump saying that the U.S. will be withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord hasn't changed that we have a lot of local companies who have chosen to stay true to the intent of the accord. And so you have
some states as well,
and states as well, yeah. And so you have, you know, larger corporations like Starbucks and REI that are doing great work on their supply chains, but also a lot of local small businesses like Fremont Brewing, who make up a lot of our core local economy, also stepping up and finding that they have new streams of revenue or new opportunities that come with making those decisions.
So who can attend this?
Anybody. I mean, that's the best part of it. If you have an interest or want to know more, there's sessions on artificial intelligence to there are creative sessions, it's just everything. I mean, the startup community, if you're an entrepreneur, you can also do a session there. So, and workshops, a number of really wonderful workshops. We'll be actually hosting, my agency, Edelman, will be hosting these B-sides. So if you loved the speaker and you got a lot from them, we'll actually, after they come off the stage, you can come out and the B-side is to hear a few more minutes.
I like that.
It's a lot
I like
of fun.
that idea. So you can get a little deeper if you want to, or ask a question. So what is the role for smaller companies? You know, we always hear about what Starbucks is doing or what Microsoft is doing. What's the role for smaller companies?
You know, the interesting thing now, if you see this, as you mentioned before, this migration that seems to be happening around Seattle and the Pacific Northwest, I think the role of those companies now is really to sort of be that support system all through the Northwest and giving opportunities to young people, and also in a lot of ways, also it's in some ways like keeping the big brands honest too. And the purpose-driven part of this is what I keep noticing time and time again with our clients and the attendees at the conference this year.
Yeah. One of the things that I've always been curious about with American business, after having worked with a nonprofit that worked with Central American businesses that embrace the idea of civil society, right? That there's family, that there's government, that there's business, but then there's civil society that says your interests alone are not enough for us to move forward together. We have to embrace these things that involve fairness and protection for the environment and that sort of thing. This seems to fit in that. Is there a way to kind of elevate what this means so that we can see this as an important part of doing business and living in this country? name it and put it forward somehow.
Yeah, well, there's a lot changing in the way that we're telling stories. And I think a lot of the stories that we tell ourselves as a country about who we are, about our values, about what matters to us, are told through predominantly one worldview. And that's been shifting through art and technology, and the ability for communities and collective action, whether it's a coalition of small businesses or cross-industry collaborations, to push the needle forward on, providing second chances for those who have already served their time in prison, or to make supply change or internal hiring process change through coalitions and collaboration. So testing out those ideas in a team rather than having to go it alone and take the risk as a business on your own.
Right, which makes sense. And is social media helping with this? I mean, once you learn something or a company is doing something like this, you can get it out there and we can all kind of ruminate and figure out how to
social
use
media
it.
Social media is definitely a component of it. I think the thing I find most interesting is that it's also local. I think now that we've seen this sort of the need for hyper-local, and even though we mentioned those big brands and we've talked about a little bit about some of the small brands that are there, I think I find most interesting around these conferences is this desire, this sort of tribal nature right now. I mean, trust is at an all-time low, right, across the board, and I think these conferences...
And not by accident. There are components of society that have made us trust each other less. We're going to have to work more on trusting one another.
And the conference
being trustworthy.
Exactly, and I think a conference like this with business people or people who have interests or want to know more, they can come into this environment and really, even just for 2 simple days, see people that they may want to meet or even have some curiosity around, or even hear about a topic that they've never heard about before.
That sounds fascinating. Thank you guys for coming in to talk about this. It sounds really interesting. I wish I could go. They expect me at work tomorrow, I think. This year's 2-day Seattle Interactive Conference kicks off tomorrow at the Conference Center at the Washington State Convention Center in downtown Seattle. We'll post a link on New Day's website where you can buy tickets. And a bonus for today's studio audience, everybody's getting tickets to attend the conference. So enjoy. You can go right after you're here. Up next, affordable ways to spruce up your